There they go. Yay. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Carlos, are you still on somewhere? Okay, sounds good. All right. So great. I thank you, everyone. I know you've been here for a while, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to getting home. So I will try try and blaze through my presentation as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, I can't hear any of you, so I'm just going to have to go with body language. So if you see anything, yeah, there we go. Exactly. The guys in back get it. Fantastic. Yeah, the guys in front. Okay. So all right. I will go ahead and start my little slide deck here. And again, I apologize since it's 6 o'clock in the morning where I am. I'm in San Francisco. I haven't watched the entirety of the rest of this show. So if I go over stuff you've already seen, consider it a refresher. Consider yourselves, especially smart for getting all this stuff. So I will just show you what I have prepared, and if I'm covering ground you already know, fantastic. But here we go. So before we get going, I would just love to take a quick poll in the room. How many people in this room have already filmed something in an LED volume? Oh, okay. So how many never been on one of these stages whatsoever? Still a couple people. All right. So this is actually a pretty experienced group. All right. Well, so I'm probably going to be going over a lot of stuff you guys already know, but whatever. Here we go. So just a real quick look into what we're doing here. I would like to just kind of share with you some new workflows and some new opportunities I think that come out of this exciting new world of virtual production. Just a quick look at who I am. I am the virtual production editor at American Cinematographer magazine. So that means that I am basically kind of sitting at the forefront of all the people that are doing this stuff. And I've had an opportunity to speak to a real cross section of industry professionals that have made this revolution happen in an insanely fast way. I also write the Virtual Production Field Guide for Epic Games, which is kind of an overview of all these different techniques and how they're being used by industry professionals, like people like Netflix and a lot of big movie companies. So I've had an opportunity again to speak to more people there. And finally, I'm the host of the Virtual Production Podcast, which you can find on your wherever you listen to podcasts. And I also run a company called The Virtual Company as a consultancy. So there you go. I am very deeply into virtual production. So in our less than an hour together, this is what I would like to cover. I know you guys know this very well, but it's interesting how much discussion there is over jargon. So one of the first things I want to do is really give you what I feel like is a clear definition of virtual production. And then look at a brief history of in-camera VFX over the years, because it's not as groundbreaking as you might realize. It's actually been around for many years. Look at some key virtual production kind of milestone projects in the last couple of years. A quick look at an LED volume that I have literally in the other room. That's very tiny, but might give you some ideas of how small these things can become and still be viable, and not to mention cost effective. And here's the parts that I think you might have seen a bit of already. We're going to look at some of the key components of an LED volume and some of the kind of optical considerations to kind of get around, so that you're aware. And finally, some of the job opportunities in virtual production. And if there's any time left, Q&A on top of that. How does that sound? Can I get a show of hands? Sounds okay. All right, cool. All right, so let's just dive right in. So again, this is something that comes up so often that I got hired by the good folks at Netflix and at Epic to create a website called vpglossary.com, which is just all about trying to define all the jargon, because we as experienced filmmakers show up on one of these LED stages and suddenly we feel like we don't know what's going on because there's so much new jargon flying around. So to kind of have a baseline, I like to start with defining what I feel like virtual production is. And really, if I boil it down to the simplest term, it's where the physical and the digital worlds intersect or meet. And really what that means is that anywhere where there is a live production element and some form of digital or virtual activity going on, that's really virtual production. So, I know that a lot of people today think of virtual production as just LED volumes, but it really is something that goes back quite a few years before that. as early as something like 2009's Avatar, directed by James Cameron. This is the still frame here. And basically, what we're saying in that for virtual production is that we're taking mocap from actors and also mocap from cameras and creating CG animation with the look of live action. And this is one of the first films that even used the term virtual production. They were calling it virtual cinematography when they were filming it, but then they ultimately used virtual production to kind of encompass that entire term. As you know, it's this combination of real-time animation and physical production. Jump forward 10 years from Avatar to 2019's The Lion King, and now we're starting to use game engine technology, not for direct final imagery, but we're using it to create enough of a proxy that a traditional camera crew led by a very, very talented cinematographer, but not someone super experienced in visual effects, can kind of bring their talents to bear. And that's kind of another really key part of how I like to define virtual production, is that it allows people who have traditional skill sets that are very applicable to filmmaking, bring that into the virtual world and kind of, leverage their talents. So that when we're talking about opportunities, that's why I like to bring that up. Finally, I think we've all heard this term "fix it in pre," very, very clearly defined. It's what you see is what you get filmmaking. If you've ever come from the world of green screen, now we can, we're seeing everything very much in camera. And the production period that we're used to spending most of our time in, which is post, is now completely inverted. And, the more that we get set before the shoot day, the better everything's going to turn out. So we've kind of switched to fix it in pre. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of this prezzo, I want to show you that all of this trying to get stuff in front of the camera, as awesome as it is in real-time animation and with LED volumes, has actually been around for years in the form of various ways filmmakers have attempted to get things into in front of the camera. So I'm gonna see about so Carlos, is it okay if I'm just gonna switch over to a different share? We'll see if this breaks everything, but be ready. All right. So I'm going to share content. Open up another window here and share this out. I don't know if you're going to hear the sound from this video, but I'll do my best. Let's see what happens. Oh, I see. Include computer sound. All right. Oh, now it's saying install a driver. Okay, let's see what. Okay, driver installed. You might need to pause and play your content. Okay, I'm gonna try that. So just wave your hands if you hear sound for this piece. So here we go. I'm gonna reopen this clip and see. See this as a window that I have open. Let's try one more time. All right. I can try. I'm going to try and muscle this through with my switcher, and let's see what happens. Oops. All right. So I am going to, let's see here. This is probably black right now, right? Okay. Let's see what I can do here. Okay. Do we see like what appears to be a screen about to play something? Here we go. Okay. All right. So that is a very quick look at where we've kind of come from over the years. And as you can see, there's been quite a few attempts to get stuff in front of the camera going as far back as the dawn of cinema. So it really is, it's just, LED volumes are just kind of the ultimate expression of how that can be done. So, again, just to say that it's not as new as it might seem. All right, so let me see if I can get back to my slide deck now. Here we go. Okay, so what's next? Some recent examples of virtual production, and I had some clips to go with these, but I'm going to skip these because I can see it's a little bit of a challenge to toggle back and forth in clips, and I want to get to some other stuff, so we'll just blaze through this. So, kind of at the forefront of this technology is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, which just recently completed its first season, and it's premiering on Paramount Plus streaming network next month in May. And this is a show that uses a 70 feet by 30 feet tall, 270-degree volume built by Pixamondo Studios in Toronto, Canada. And they originally were using LED technology to kind of minimize their footprint and eliminate location travel under COVID restrictions, but they ultimately discovered that there was so much new stuff that they could do with this technology that they kind of just embraced it anyway. And they've even designed some of the sets for this brand new show to work around LED volumes. Like, they have a very large engine room on Star Trek, obviously always, and so now half of that room is now completely virtual. With just a couple of desks and some kind of guardrails in front of it. But if you see it on screen, it just looks absolutely massive due to it being so much virtual. A little closer to where you guys are in Amsterdam right now, another recently wrapped production, Netflix's 1899. This is kind of a cool show because it was originally set to be filmed entirely on location on a 19th century sort of steamship out in the middle of the ocean. But again, due to COVID, they decided that the best way to realize what they had in mind would be to just bring it all into a virtual production stage. And so they did that in Germany, and they added some cool innovations like a set that could be entirely spun around with set pieces kind of rolled in and out on giant rafters. So they were able to, because it's set on the open ocean, they did a lot of water effects, and they were able to make raindrops land just inches or millimeters away from LED screens, which I'm sure you might know. LED screens don't like to get wet. But they figured that out. Star Wars series, we all know The Mandalorian kind of kicked off this current rage in LED volumes. The Book of Boba Fett just came out not too long ago on Disney Plus, and they have another show set to come out in May for Obi-Wan Kenobi. So again, tons of Star Wars shows lend themselves perfectly to this technique. And jumping forward even further in the future, this is a movie coming out next summer. This is the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I guess, aka Ant-Man 3. This is filming. I don't know if they're done yet. This is filming over in the UK. What you're looking at here is a reference reflection sphere sitting in front of a giant LED volume. So this is all on stage indoors. And finally, even very modest, kind of not giant visual effects shows, like this ABC show called How I Met Your Father, is using LED volume. In this case, the show is filmed in Los Angeles, but it's set in New York City, and they want to do some scenes where the characters are running across the Brooklyn Bridge, and so they just made it on a stage and with an LED volume, and boom, done. They have the scope that looks like they're in New York, but they're able to just safe in Los Angeles. And, this is all from Disney, ABC, which has been just huge proponents of all this tech over the years. So it's just kind of the next step for them. So that's just some brief looks. And now, hopefully, this will be interesting for you. I would like to show you, let me just see if I can switch off sharing, because this is going to be full screen on me. So now I'm gonna. So Carlos, is there a way to make my screen large for everybody? Because the rest of this is just going to be purely in the switch. There you go. Nice. Okay. Okay. So So let me just set up here for audio because I'm going to go. So I'm in one room where I am now, and I'm going to go over into another area where this stage is set up. And again, just so you can see the kind of modesty of it. So, okay, I'm switched over to wireless audio now. And let me see. I can still see everybody on the screen. So does everybody see this? Show of hands. All right, right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go walk over there now. So that's my little LED stage environment. So let me just walk over there. All right, so now I am a few yards away. And here I am in an LED environment. I am, and again, this is a very modest one. This is a room that is. I apologize for giving this to you all in feet, but that's just how I think. But this is a room that's approximately 15 feet wide by about 20 feet deep. So, you know, again, a very small stage for LED volumes. And I'll just show you the wide view of this just so you can get a sense of it. Okay, so here you are. Again, about a 12-foot tall ceiling height here. You know, about 15 feet across. Very small setup, but as you can see, you know, reasonably effective as a stage. And I'll just show you real quick. I know you've been talking about camera tracking, but if anybody has never seen that live in person, I know quite a few of you have already been on LED volumes. But I'm just going to bring my little standing guy here because I'm all alone because everybody else right now is asleep over here. But what I want you to look at, just real quick, is in this background. Look at this kind of mid foreground piece here. These kind of wooden slats. When I do my camera move, you'll see the frustum respond live to that. So you can see it kind of gives me that illusion of depth by just kind of rolling back and forth on my dolly here. And you can see that's, you know, it's pretty straightforward. I'll show that in the stage view just so you can see what that looks like live in the room. So as I cruise around with the frustum, there it goes. Very, very, very straightforward, although it took us a lot of time to figure this out. You can see right here, this is my little Moses tracking system, and it's looking, there's a camera right here that looks up into the ceiling. You can actually see my hand blocking it right now. But if I take that away, it's looking up, and I'll just switch over to the direct camera view one more time so you can see up in the ceiling. Trackers, there's a glyph in there too that's from an NCAM system, but we're not using that today. This is just purely Moses. So tracking of a constellation of little reflective stickers in the ceiling. It's very straightforward. You can actually, if I go a little too fast, you can see I actually overtake my frustum because the room is again so small. I have to be a little careful how I have that calibrated, but we can work around that just so you get the idea. And I guess one other thing I'd love to show with this setup is the kind of ease of changeover of a scene. So real quick, so right now I'm in an Unreal Engine scene. This is live 3D, but you know, we also do a lot of straight footage projection. So I'm gonna switch over to footage. Here I am in Vegas now, but you might think, there's something slightly weird about this. And that slight weirdness is that the lighting doesn't quite match. I'm still setting the lighting for the office demo. So what I'm gonna do real quick is switch over from static lighting to pixel mapping. So now I'm sampling the backdrop itself. And I'm gonna change the exposure on my camera ever so slightly so I can just see a little better in here. It's a little bit overexposed, but you get the idea. So now, if you look to the left of this shot, and I'll go back in here so this guy can take a break. If you look on camera left, you can see this kind of Caesar's Palace sign over in the background. The light is this light that's over here is actually looking at that directly. So whenever that video content changes, you can see that it's very much in sync with the lighting. So with that, I'm able to get a very simple kind of baseline illumination that works. You know, I mean, you saw I went from like office interior to nighttime footage in a couple of seconds with just a couple lights. Again, let me show you the wide view one more time just so you can see what that looks like. two very modest lights, LED lights that are split into four little quadrants. So each one of these individual little zones on these lights can look at a different piece of the scene, or can be set to whatever kind of lighting I want. Like if I just want to do a pattern of lighting, for example, I could go something like this. Something like this kind of lighting. I could do, a pattern of lighting. I could do some kind of crazy, whatever sort of stuff. Whatever I can imagine. Possible. And that's about it for the live demo. I don't know if there's any questions that come out of that before I leave this setup and go back to slide deck. What do you say?
What software are you using for that lights you're showing us?
Oh yeah, so the app that I use for light control is called ELM Light Manager, and it's a very simple program. You might have seen a bit of the interface up there. In fact, I think if I switch to the stage view, you can probably see that a little bit better. I'll just drag it. I'm actually in mirror mode, so I have two desktops. One of which is a monitor that I have here on the side, and the other one is obviously the screen itself. But it's very straightforward. This software. It basically it lets me load up any kind of media that I might want to use as a source. You can see right now I'm actually looking at the screen itself, and each of my two very modest lights is kind of represented as a little bar here. So as I drag this around, I'm sampling different parts of the image, or if I drag it off completely, it goes completely dark. Same thing with this guy. Let me just remove the interface a little bit over so it doesn't block so much of the image. Same idea, just wherever I drag this, I'm going to be sampling video. And this can be an animation, this could be a still image, just anything I want to grab hue and intensity from. I can do that. And so I just have a lot of flexibility in setting up. And again, this is a very small room, very modest setup, but it's enough to kind of pull off. We've been shooting a number of projects, corporate stuff, little commercials, music videos, even like short films. It's the size of this room is surprisingly effective for this technology. Exactly. So essentially what happens is the software looks at the screen as a capture source and then translates that into RGB and intensity values, and just kind of gives me the closest approximation. It's not perfect. There's a little bit of a lag, but it's, as we say in the US, it's good enough for government work. So in this setup, and you can see the exposure changes pretty dramatically. Let me just knock that back down. There we go. So yeah, for this we use, so this is actually end display, what you're looking at right here. This is the production environment of Unreal. And you can see I'm still in the lighting from the previous scene, so it's not quite looking right. So I'll real quickly just toggle back. But yeah, so what happens is there's a plugin. There's a plugin in Unreal that connects to the star tracker, the tracking module, and just communicates its XYZ coordinates, and those very quickly get turned into to the corresponding moves in the engine. Like if you look at that kind of back table, you can see it's like, I can get as close as I want. Well, I'm limited a little bit by how large this room is, but get the idea. I can make it seem surprisingly big on screen. As soon as I go off screen, the illusion is broken, but you get the idea. All right. Oh, my vision, or just the vision in general? Like, in other words, where are these things going to end up going? That's a good question. Yeah. Well, let me. That's a good opportunity to jump back into slides, because I think my slides will probably explain that a little bit better. All right, I'm back. Let me just switch off of wireless here. All right, now I'm back on my little wired mic here. Okay, so yeah, let me just jump into some of the stuff. This is some of the stuff I feel like you've already covered, so I'm just going to blaze right through it. But if there's anything that comes up that is you want me to kind of dwell on a bit, just say the word. So yeah, I watched part of the previous presentation, so I think you got this stuff kind of covered pretty well. But depth of field, very critical piece of the puzzle, because you do not want to focus directly on your screen, because as you know from the previous presentation, you're going to get a lot of moire or moire, whatever you want to call it. And this is kind of the one and only major gotcha in these LED stages. And it's something that I think as we move forward in this trajectory of virtual production, again, to answer the previous question, that's going to go away, because we're going to get screens that have sharper and sharper pitches. We're going to have better processing. We're going to have larger volumes. We're going to have, I imagine at some point, we're going to have cameras that have some sort of sensor that is optimized to reduce this as well. But I think ultimately what's going to do the trick is short depth of field lensing, large volumes, and sharper and sharper pitches on the LED screens themselves. So that will go away. Viewing angle, though, is another major challenge. If you look at this image, for example, it appears that the ceiling screen has a very strong magenta cast, but it doesn't. It just looks that way because LED panels are not designed to be looked at too far of an off angle. So what you get is some of the emitters don't quite seem like they're shining at certain angles. The good news is that in this example, the ceiling screens are not designed to be seen on camera anyway. They're just there for providing environmental lighting, and that doesn't change. Even though it looks like it would be providing a very insane amount of magenta cast, it actually, because it's directly underneath that screen, doesn't get that cast. It just appears that way from this particular perspective. So that's something to keep in mind. Frustum, you just saw a live demo of it in my stage, but the idea is pretty straightforward. We're trying to give the camera its perspective sort of directly to it, and leave the rest of the 3D environment essentially static. Because if you think about the real world, when you pan a camera around in the real world, the world itself doesn't spin around. And if it did, you would have kind of quite a bit of odd lighting changes. So that's why we restrict the movement of the environment to just what the camera can actually see, so that the lighting holds itself more or less still. And also it provides a big advantage as far as processing power. So that's sort of the main reasons why we use the frustum. What else? Latency lag. I don't know if you could. This is something you might have noticed in the previous little demo, that it's very easy to overtake the frustum and end up seeing that transition mark where there's static part of the environment and moving part of the environment. And the way we get around that is just by having absolutely massive volumes with giant frustums, so that we don't overshoot, or we keep our camera operation a little more conservative to avoid overshooting the frustum, because latency is definitely an issue. There's just a lot of processing that goes between what the engine is putting out on the screen and what the camera is capturing, a number of milliseconds later, and even a little bit of that kind of latency can cause you problems. So something to think about. And then just there becomes the whole challenge of creating an environment on geometric shapes. I have a very simple setup here. My screen is just one flat surface, so I don't have to deal with this kind of projection mapping stuff. But once you get into curved screens or walls or side walls, ceilings, I've seen floors. Even props can be built to LED screens. Then you become a more complicated virtual world. So that's it. Again, to review what you've already looked at. So finally, opportunities. This is what I think is where it gets very interesting. This is a subset of filmmaking, but at the same time, there is a lot of new opportunity, both for newcomers who have not done anything in production but are very interested, and as well as veterans who are looking to pivot into new opportunities. Really, it's just because the LED volume itself is such an unusual combination of job positions that used to be in post-production, such as compositors, VFX animators, artists, and brings them into a live environment with its own kind of schedule and pressure. So, people that have that long traditional training in how things should look to be most realistic, but also can deal with being on a live production environment, are the ones that are in demand right now, because it's just that unique combination of skills. Things like we talked about in the very beginning with the Lion King example, just by the nature of a camera being a virtual camera, you can take someone who is trained in operating a traditional camera and put them into one of these productions and have them transfer their skill set into the virtual world just by giving them a kind of familiar interface. And there's many, many ways to do this. In The Lion King, they did drone shots, they did Steadicam shots, they did dolly shots, crane shots, and all of it was being tracked into the virtual world so that those people didn't need to know anything about a real-time engine in order to be able to use their talents that they spent so many years building up. Virtual scouting, this kind of brings in a whole new way of working. I mean, in this example from Lion King, they're working in the same room, but there's absolutely nothing to stop you. And that's what people were doing for the past couple of years, of scouting out environments and planning productions entirely remotely, where everybody is looking either in a VR headset or even on just a screen, in a Zoom call or a Teams call or whatever, and seeing everything that, they need to see in order to kind of work together and be more and more efficient. And, in motion capture, again, takes it to a whole different level, because now, we can divorce the acting of the movement and performances of actors from camera movement. So we can focus on one and then refine the other. Or in the case of this is a shot from Avatar 2, obviously the sequel to the 2009 Avatar, where now a lot of the action is set underwater. And of course, it being James Cameron, he didn't want to do the easy thing and have everybody pretend to be swimming. It's like, nope, they should actually be swimming while they're doing the mocap. And so we get this kind of crazy sort of setup, which I'm sure is going to look amazing. And, if you think about all the different disciplines that are required to bring together a mocap stage and an underwater cinematography kind of shoot like this, you can just imagine all the new opportunities that are coming for people who are at the, cutting edge of technology versus, people who have been doing this kind of crazy production for years. That's really just about it. That's all I got. I kind of blazed through that, but I know that the show is running late, so I'm here to kind of pinch hit and, bring it up to the end. If you are interested in this sort of stuff, either to just learn more about it, or you're looking for maybe some help in setting these kinds of very modest DIY sort of volumes up, feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. I am fairly prolific with all things virtual production, and would love to connect and hear what you're up to. Let me stop sharing, and I'll just see if there's any other questions, or if everybody wants to get off to the pub. I completely understand.
I have a very quick question. So, the light.
I see a question in back. I don't hear it, but I see
the light fixtures that you used. What model are those?
Oh yeah, they're very simple. Those are Light Gear light panels. They're about $5,000 each. And I went to film school where we didn't have LED panels of any kind, so coming from that universe where an HMI 1200 watt or 2000 watt tungsten light were the best we could do, and those would throw out an insane amount of heat and would blow out all the fuses in the house if you weren't filming in a stage. To go to that from that to something like this, to me, is pretty mind blowing. So I'm a big fan, and they're very easy to customize. But I mean, it's just, there's a world of these lights out there. To my previous speaker, Stefan from Airy, you can also do the exact same thing with sky panels. And we actually had an orbiter here not too long ago for Fresnel spotlight kind of action, and same thing, really looked great. And once those are tied into your DMX system, they can be addressed in kind of a pixel mapping way, the way I did it, where I'm just sort of sampling the entire 2D image of the screen and using that to drive video, or they can be plugged right into the Unreal environment themselves and become, virtual lighting fixtures that go wherever the environment goes. So if I want to put, a key light that's a real light on my stage, but also matches some lighting source in the virtual environment, I can connect those up via DMX. It's a robust kind of protocol, and it's kind of limitless what you can imagine being done with this. There's quite a few productions in the US that are really going to town. And so actually, same thing with Star Trek. That Strange New World show is doing really cool stuff, synchronizing the live environment with the virtual environment, and kind of making, lighting just really look synchronized and integrated.
Hi. My question is, we already saw some speaker today speaking about the reduction of the cost of the entire production of a series of a movie. Does this technology, does virtual production can reduce so much the cost for production to start proliferating around, to start becoming like a new way of doing things in this kind of sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who are making the most success right now in virtual production are thinking of it less in terms of the savings, which can be significant depending on the way the production is set up, and more just as a way to maximize resources. If it's the kind of thing where it's just a couple shots and it's from a very modest production, you might be better off shooting on location. If it's the kind of production that's sort of built around one of these stages, where it's all in one very exotic location, that the investment of building a virtual environment pays off, like a spaceship on a sci-fi show, or I don't know, some big desert location, or maybe a castle on some kind of medieval show. I mean, anything you could conceive of is possible, and that's kind of what to me is kind of interesting, is that writers are now taking a look at what these stages can do and sort of tailoring their writing to the strengths, and in some ways coming up with shows that you couldn't have done any other way, or would be prohibitively expensive or dangerous, or just too much effort versus just kind of writing a simpler scene. So yeah, it's got a lot of potential for cost effectiveness, but it also has a huge amount of potential for just sort of creatively doing whatever. One of the little projects that I work on a lot is I do student film productions with the students at NYU, and we do like 4 of these movies every semester, so twice a year. And it's great because they can just write coming from a film school background, they're used to being told like, okay, you have extremely limited resources, set it all in your apartment, or set it all in, the sidewalk in front of your house or whatever, but don't make anything too exotic. Whereas in this thing, they've been doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like I've been in movies where I'm like on the deck of a spaceship, or like a guy out in the middle of the desert, and all that we shot on this little stage, and you would never know. I mean, it's very straightforward and easy once you have the environment. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for the virtual production field guide. It was very helpful when stepping into the world of virtual production. And it's very important that everyone is talking the same language, because so many departments are involved. So well done on that. It was very useful.
Oh, Thank you. There's going to be more, actually. Well, we'll see. We're working on it, so stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Svetlana, and I'm from Riga, Lead Unit Virtual Production Studio. I was really hoping to meet you here. Thank you for your posts on LinkedIn and everywhere. The information you're sharing is very, very useful in VP Live. And as I was trying to reach you through LinkedIn, I didn't succeed. I hope to meet you here. Now the question is, I'm coming to LA. Would it be possible to meet you?
Well, yeah. I don't. If you're gonna be coming to NAB, I'll be at that. I would have loved. I totally would have loved to come out to Amsterdam and be there in person, but there's just too much stuff going on over here. I couldn't take off for that amount of time. But yeah, I mean, by all means, look me up on LinkedIn. Connect with me, shoot me a message, whatever. I'm very. I try to be as approachable as possible, even though technically I'm not physically in the room with you guys. But I feel like we know each other. Some of us. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? And by all means, if you think of something afterwards, feel free to hit me up later. I'm happy to discuss. It's been a heck of a lot of fun doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I was wondering, in your demo scene, we also saw a marker on the ceiling for using NCAM, and I was wondering what your experience is using NCAM in combination with LED volumes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so yeah, one of my kind of main sort of reasons for having this stage is to just kind of learn about all these different technologies. So we've tested Moses, we've tested NCAM, we've tested Vibe Tracker, we've tested. What else was there? Oh, a couple of prototypes that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but I had better luck with Moses. I think NCAM. I know NCAM is used a lot. I think it might be a little more optimized for exterior shoots. Kind of large environments where there's not the possibility of having static markers. But I mean, once you get up to speed with one of these systems, they all kind of do the same thing. As long as they have a plugin that works pretty well with the engine, Unreal in this case. I mean, Unity as well, but as far as I know, I haven't seen a lot of stuff with Unity being done in front of camera. Unity seems to be more of the previs visualization tool, whereas Unreal is kind of the reigning champ of in front of the camera stuff. But I've seen a lot of use of Moses. I've seen a lot of use of NCAM. I've seen a lot of use of Vibe Tracker, but I think a lot of people find that to be a little limiting because it's just not optimized for very accurate camera tracking. It's more of like a VR thing that people have hacked together, but it's a great way to get started. And I think there's plenty of room in this world for some more entry-level tracking products. I've seen people do it even with their phones, but again, it's a challenge because the accuracy you get with that and the reliability is definitely, I don't think, up to like the level of production, but it's great for experimenting and learning this stuff. Very long-winded answer, but I hope that answered the question. Okay, sounds good. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you. Bye.